Welcome to Pimpy's Investment Chat, where we keep investment talk simple. And here's your host, Pimpy.
What is going on out there, peeps? Man, look at the seriousness in his eyes. That should tell you everything you need to know about what's going on in Iraq. Good Lord, I've only been away for a couple of weeks and already things have gotten worse rather than better. My concern was that a civil war would pop off, and it's starting to look that way. Although Sauter's calling it a revolution, yeah, it's a revolution when everybody's on the same page and they want to change the government. But it's a civil war when you got two different parties disagreeing on how this country needs to be ran. People are dying, protesters have been shot. Sauter is demanding peace and his people to be out of the area within a period of time. He has retired from politics altogether. But I think it's too late. The ball's already rolling. Even if Sauter said he was going to quit, I think people are at a point, and not just here, but around the world. And there's a huge part of me that can't help but feel like the disablement of governments around the world are being done on purpose, including here in the United States. We'll cover that here in just a second for just a quick minute, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. And I warned that this was coming. Before we get started, though, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. If you're not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel, and I certainly do appreciate it. If you're thinking about buying gold and silver, go check out our friends over there at Money Metals Exchange. The link is down below in the description. If you're a first-time buyer and you spend more than $100, use promo code Pimpy, P-I-M-P-Y, and you will get a free half ounce of silver. Okay, so there's several articles about the disputes that are still going on. The country's becoming more and more unstable to the point where you have multiple outside intermediates wanting to come in and interfere. And why would the United States be interested in interfering all over again? Well, how about all their interests that they have invested over there? No other country should go in there and interfere with what's going on. This has to be between the Iraqi people. Sauter had made the same suggestion that I did, and that is the coordinated framework, get the hell out of the way. His people get the hell out of the way, and then let the people vote in the government. You can tell Sauter listens to my videos. Yes. The country is still unstable. This is not helpful for those of us who are invested in the Iraqi Dinar. And yes, I heard all the different stories about, oh, look, the dinar is gaining against the dollar. I told you it was, but not enough to write home to mom about. Certainly not enough to really be writing articles. It is gaining strength. And for what reason? For the same reason I told you it would. And that is the U.S. dollar is dying. And because of that, other currencies would rise up against the U.S. dollar. The Iraqi dinar is no exception. But there is something interesting that's brewing that I don't see a lot of people talking about. And that is the United States has really pissed off Saudi Arabia. They've been making some serious demands, especially when it comes to oil. Threats about the prince being brought up for the death of Khashoggi has not been a good way to approach the prince. So now the BRICS nations have invited other nations to come join them, and they are joining them. China and Russia have developed their own bullion exchange. No more relying on the COMEX or the LBMA. Yes, in addition to that, they also have started up their own, ready for this, company that would decide the actual value of gold and silver, and they're going to use their values, not the one handed to them by the United States, because the one in the United States is heavily manipulated. They want the free market to decide the value of gold and silver. That's why if you don't have gold and silver, you better run over there to Money Metals before it's too late. Saudi Arabia has been invited to come join them, and this is what they're talking about doing. They're pissed about the manipulation of oil prices in the United States as well. So they're going to cut production. Yep, cut production and drive the price way up there. And now Saudi Arabia is thinking about joining China and Russia into making their currencies backed by gold. And that would be a huge blow to the US dollar and a great increase for people who hold gold and silver. There is a direction that the Iraq is going in that I'm not too thrilled about. This article right here, the World Bank sets the end of 2023 to implement e-governance. I spoke about this in videos before. I said I was going to get into detail. We're definitely going to break the weeds on this one here. E-governance is a digital governance that every country is going to bow down to. Yeah, you vote in your political party, or so they say we're voting them in. And then what happens is the e-governance is going to be dictating to them, which is a one world government ran by bureaucrats, unelected by us. They will determine the laws, procedures, regulations that are going to be obeyed by every country that is part of this e-governance. And for countries that do not participate in, they will be left out with trade and everything else, and they're threatening to cut them off the SWIFT system. And this is why you're seeing China and Russia and other countries now joining those two to get away from this type of dictatorship. It looks like the World Economic Forum's plan is starting to fail, although Klaus Schwab did come out and remind those countries of their signed agreement. I don't know if it holds any water, but we're going to find out. I'll cover a little bit more on the e-governance on my Pimpy's news network because obviously it's a sensitive subject that people need to hear about, but they're definitely not going to let you really talk about it here on YouTube. So they're giving everybody to the end of next year to be fully complied. The reason for e-governance is they're saying that people around the world do not trust their governments anymore. They don't trust their elected officials. That's why I'm saying I can't help but feel like, hey, this thing is planned because it's just magically everything is happening at the same time around the world. Statistically speaking, it's not realistic. E-governance, you got until the end of 2023 for everybody to be complied. The World Bank has set the end of next year, 2023, as a time limit for all state institutions to implement e-governance programs. What pisses me off here as a person who lives in the United States, our Constitution is very strict about any outside entity or person dictating policies to be held here in the United States, but yet we seem to have forgotten about our Constitution, or most people have no idea what the Constitution protects us from. This is one of those things. A member of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption Coalition, head of the Al Noreen Network to support integrity and transparency. Yeah, just because they give it all kinds of fancy names doesn't mean it's true. Politicians pass laws that have fancy names like the Inflation Reduction Act when it doesn't reduce the inflation at all. It's a lie. But people are like, yay, look, our team's doing something. Your team's making things worse. The World Bank funds governance process, which must be implemented by all state institutions, especially those of public interest, including the ministries of oil and finance. Yeah, they're grabbing and buying control of all of our commodities. So you can understand where Russia and China are coming from. They too are starting to really invest heavily into commodities, especially gold and silver. You can see Iraq is doing the same thing. They are buying tons of gold. India is buying 1,000 tons of silver by the end of this year. So what are these nations deciding to do? Are they really going to open up a free market like it's supposed to be and avoid the central bank digital currency, avoid the e-governance? You're starting to see a little bit of a war take place and people are not even aware of it. I'll cover this more a little bit later on, considering who knows what kind of mood YouTube will be in. So we know that the Supreme Judicial Council is supposed to be deciding on whether or not to dissolve Parliament and go back to elections. We already know that the chief of the Supreme Court Council, who's friends with Maliki, his life has been threatened now 2 times. Word has it, they come from 2 leaders of the Sodarist movement. That's the word. But who can you really trust? Things are starting to become more and more unstable. But I tell you what, if for whatever reason that man is killed, you might see a whole different type of court system altogether. One that is not biased. So Saudi Arabia is deciding to reduce the production of oil that they are putting out, even though the United States keeps demanding it, which is kind of weird, considering we were at one time the largest exporter of energy until a certain president got in there and reversed all kinds of actions taken by Trump to keep us independent from these types of manipulations. To add to all the fun that's going on, as I was stating, Saudi Arabia is talking about moving all OPEC members into the gold standard. In other words, you have to buy the oil using a single dinar, which might be the Arab accounting dinar, or using the local currencies, which would then strengthen all the local currencies, including the Iraqi dinar, who would do the same thing with their dinar, and that is buy more gold to support their currencies. And you would see the same rotation, them offering oil at a discount, like Russia, because Russia is OPEC plus, selling to nations who are friendly to them at a discount, and in exchange buying gold for higher than market value, accumulating tons and tons of gold, which will be used for the gold standard. Russia and China have already said they are ready to go back to sound money of all things. They said countries are getting too carried away with printing money nonstop. It's time to go back down. It's time to go back to sound money. Now, this is interesting coming from Russia and China. It should be coming from the United States. But of course, what that does, if they go back to the gold standard, it limits the powers and spending habits of the government. They can't keep creating all these slush funds that they got out there to strengthen their political parties to continue to do corruption. Those types of fundings would be definitely cut. You can see right here what I was talking about. Arrest warrants issued against 2 Soros leaders accused of threatening the judiciary. So, evacuation of the Central Bank of Iraq complex in Baghdad for security reasons. Yeah, you don't want this to happen. You don't want them to get raided and then the money be stolen, because you know what they're going to do then? If you steal the dinar out of the central bank like it was by ISIS, you take that money out again, you could kiss your dinars goodbye, because they would be forced then for sure to produce new dinars in order to keep the corrupt people who stole the money from benefiting from it. Yeah, that's what you don't want. Because I'm not so sure what kind of cooperation we get from these exchange people, that if they do indeed switch, are they just going to automatically switch our currencies out of the kindness of their heart? No. Here we go. Iraq's gold reserves rise to 131 tons. They are not the only one. We have central banks around the world trying to buy up gold, a ton of gold, and they are. But you have countries that are separate buying this, come to find out. I'm assuming that they are doing it all through their central banks. But remember, most all the central banks are part of the Rothschild chain. But there are other ones who are not controlled by the Rothschilds at all. Countries are storing up on gold. China and Russia have done it in a big way. We're seeing Iraq increase their gold holdings more and more. This only strengthens the currency. You better hope that all these countries are not on the same team, because if they are, they really pulled the wool over people's eyes, and we're all going to be sucked into this new governance system. Talk about a one world government and a one world currency. But it's nice to see Iraq increase their reserves. It's nice to see Iraq increase their gold holdings. Both do a great job of strengthening the Iraqi dinar, so that when they finally go to make the exchange rate change, they will be protected. But until that country is stable, that's not going to happen. 90% of the MPs are against dissolving parliament. Of course they are. That's their job. If you dissolve parliament, they'll have no job. But keep in mind, the person that's supposed to be able to do it is Saleh. So are the courts going to deny the president the right to dissolve the parliament? They can't break this stronghold. The courts should not interfere in that business. It's Saleh. Saleh was asked to do it once before. Just because they're the interim government, that doesn't mean you should strip them of their powers. And this is why you're seeing these judges' lives be threatened. So yeah, I seen everybody jumping up and down about articles like this. Hey, look, dollar exchange rates drop with the closure of the Baghdad Stock Exchange. Yeah, that means the dollar's losing values against the Iraqi dinar. That's the direction we want it to go into. So what does this mean? How much of a drop? Well, for every $100, you used to be able to get 148,500 Iraqi dinars. How much did the dinar gain? Well, with that same $100, you can now get 147,500 dinars. So it went down 1,000 dinars. Not that big of a jump. Nothing to get overhyped about. Not like a lot of these people are making videos discussing, talking about back screens and 800 numbers and all that other crap they've been lying to you guys about. It is going in the right direction. That's what we want. It's been going in the right direction a little at a time. I know there's been talk now, the coordinated framework talking about changing the exchange rate back to where it used to be in order to kiss butt to the public and fall in their good favor. I don't know how realistic that's going to be, considering you don't have a president, you don't have a prime minister, you don't have a government, you haven't passed a budget, and we are about 6 weeks away from when the election was held and nothing has been accomplished. Is it planned? Could be. Declining interest of banks realized from the difference in selling the central bank of Iraq from the dollar. So they're selling the bank? No, I'm just kidding. It's the dinar. Iraq's Future Foundation for Economic Affairs indicates on Friday a decline in the benefits of the bank realized from the difference in selling the price of the dollar between the window of the Central Bank of Iraq and the market price during the first 7 months. Really? They're just now realizing this? They're just barely realizing this? I've been talking about the dinar now for over 2 years, and they were already talking about that. So why it is that they're just magically now realizing that there's a difference? The auctions are supposed to be used to control the exchange rate from getting out of hand. But it's been used for some real corrupt stuff, and there has been talk several times about ending the auctions, except for they moved it from Kurdistan into Iraq, so Iraq can control the auctions. You can see here over the years, this is 2022. Right now, you get 1,450 dinars for every $1 US. Back in 2016, you used to only get 1,182 dinars for every $1 US. Going back to 2013, you used to only get 1,166 dinars for every $1 US. This is the direction we want to go into. See this decrease? Yes, when it decreases, that means Iraq's value is gaining on the US dollar. We want the amount of dinars exchanged for US dollar to decrease. As a matter of fact, we want it to get to a point where they can exchange one dinar for multiple US dollars. Overall, we are definitely going in the wrong direction, but there is some hope with the decline of the US dollar. But there are nations around the world who are really pissed and tired of the US using the SWIFT system to bully people into doing what they want. So there is a silver lining when it comes to the dinar. No pun intended. Here's my thing. You have the gold reserves increasing, which is a huge step. You have the foreign currency reserves increasing. It's I believe it's at 90 billion right now, or should be at 92 billion by the end of the year, which is awesome. The more, the better. But until you get a stable government, a stable nation, and a stable economy, you're never going to see the exchange rate change in any dramatic form one way or the other. I stick to my original plan when it comes to Iraq, and that is I did come up with a solution that I think is effective. And as a matter of fact, you see Sauder agrees, and that is, look, Sauderist people need to step aside, the coordinating framework people need to step aside. They need to let the people of Iraq pick the prime minister and the president and kind of take it from there. Anyways, you let me know what you think. I'm glad to be back. A lot of crazy things happening. It's good to see that the Iraqi dinar is gaining on the US dollar, even if it is tiny. That's the right direction. If Saudi Arabia does make their move to reduce production of oil, that's only going to drive the value of oil up even higher, which Iraq will benefit from. And if Saudi Arabia decides to make the move to the gold standard, like Russia and China are talking about doing, well, that's going to make things even better, especially for gold and silver holders. That's it for now. Let me know what you guys think. I look forward to hearing from you. I'm out.